All right, welcome to the Two Sons Podcast. Happy Monday, everybody. Hope all of you guys had a great weekend. How are you, man? You just got back in town?
Yeah, Temecula.
Temecula?
Temecula
Was there for a wedding? I can't believe you still have weddings. It's so funny. I said to Luke, I was like, I think this is your last wedding for a while. And he's like, no, there's always another one.
No. I was thinking about that. I have a huge family. I have like 70 cousins. So it'll just... And then by the time that all my younger cousins are done, it's going to be all of our kids. It's going to be nonstop. Weddings are fun, though, you know?
I have two siblings that are still on track to get married at some point in the future. I have a bunch of cousins as well, although they're all in Texas. So, yeah, I have a similar feeling.
Yeah.
My last wedding that I went to, man, it's been a long time. I can't even remember. I'm in a little bit of a lull here, but usually it's a huge part of the adult experience. It's like you're always either buying plane tickets for the next wedding or at a wedding. Like you're always doing one of the two.
I feel like I'm constantly asking for time off for weddings too. They're like, how many people do you know? It's like, you do the same thing, boss.
I have another wedding. You know how it goes. Today we are covering Fallout. So we covered episode 1, our kind of initial impressions. And then you went out of town.
Yes.
And Carly and I, my wife, we just binged it. And we finished it in like 3 nights. Only 8 episodes. But I will say... every single time I started the next episode and heard that patented Fallout static noise as the TV would turn on, I got the feels. I got so excited every single time. Every episode I thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah.
How are you with all the violence?
It's so funny because so one of the trainers at the gym that we're at, his name's Colin. Shout out to Colin if you're listening. I guess he checked out our last pod. Your wife was talking about us, and that's how he found out. All of our
friends go to work out at this place called F45. It's like functional training for 45 minutes. Some of you guys are probably aware, but they have like a culture at the gym.
It's kind of a cult, cult, same thing.
And I don't go because I am very, very OCD about my basketball regimen, and I do not fuck with it. But like everyone else goes, and so Colin's one of the trainers at the gym.
Yeah.
My wife and
Absolute
all of our friends
vibe.
Anyway.
Yeah, but he was talking about it, and he was so stoked about it, right? Like he was so excited. He's like, it's so good, and he reminds me of you because he was like really into the games. Mm-hmm. I guess he has like one of the helmets.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
from
I
that same company.
Cool. No, I think it's a different company.
Oh, okay,
different company. But
yeah, we have a surprise for the show. Luke got some AT-AT pilot helmets that we have for our new studio when we get in there, and that same company makes like the Fallout Power Armor helmets, which are freaking sick.
So cool. But overall, Jay, to answer your question, I thoroughly enjoyed it. There was, like I said last time, I think like. For me, it felt like it was turned up to 12 in regards to just how grisly it was. Mm-hmm. And I could have handled, or I would have liked personally if it was like a level 10. And I know that that's not everybody's take. Like, I know that some people loved every single second of it and they wouldn't have changed it, which was some of the things that, we predicted. We knew that there was going to be just massive nerd being used in the greatest way. For people who would just absolutely love Fallout, and we knew that they would just absolutely fall in love with the show, and sure enough, everyone is.
Fallout, the games, violence was a big part of it.
Yeah.
So like if the game was based on like an action point system in the early iterations, and then it became more real time first person or third person shooter style in the later versions of the game. So the early versions of games, it was literally action points. It was like turns. You'd have a turn and you'd have your stamina was like the number of action points you had, and you could move a certain amount of spaces. When you get into combat, like it was like a action point contest. If you used a certain weapon, it would use more action points, that kind of thing.
I see.
Then it turned into like a third person thing. But in the later versions, you could still use action points in this like third person aiming system called VATS is what it was called. So in the first episode, they showed kind of like a dramatization of VATS in a slow motion gunfire scene.
Oh, I see.
So, but basically, like in those scenes, like you would it would slow down and it would present the body of the person you were targeting with like segments, and it'd be like head, chest, arm, like that sort of thing. And you could pick like what you wanted to aim at, and it would tell you the percentage chance based on your traits of like whether or not you would hit it. But like if you got a critical hit, like the head would explode or like the arm would explode or something like that. So like
there was dismemberment.
Yeah, there was bad dismemberment, and like even in the live third person, like it got rid of all those percentages, but the critical hit chances were still there. So you'd be like aiming and firing, and like if you hit the raider,
you'd get one
with your rifle in the head in the right spot. The raiders have just you would like fall over. So like it's kind of like fun.
Yeah.
So I do think that was, because this is really my biggest take on the show. It was this unique combination of palatable for the masses, because Carly loved it.
Did she?
Yeah,
cool.
she really enjoyed it. But also like a sincere homage to the games.
Yeah.
Like that's what it was.
That up. I picked up on that. And again, I didn't play the games, but I could definitely pick up that they were trying to do a massive shout out to the true feeling of the games, right? Like, so for example, when Lucy gets to her destination, she looks down and she gets like the little achievement unlocked thing that kind of like beeped on her arm. Like, obviously that was very game feeling. The other thing too is the NPCs. Like they said, they actually spent a lot of time on what would be like NPC type characters. Like there was one part where I was paying attention to that, and it's right when Maximus gets his suit. And he's kind of giving it a test run, and he kicks the rock, and then it wings off the side of the building, and the entire building comes down, right?
Yeah.
And then on the other side of the building is where that argument is happening between that guy and the other guy who's trying to sell the elixirs the entire show.
Yeah.
Right? And then that in real life, like they would have heard the building crumble, but in video games that doesn't happen. You just turn around a corner and then there's two NPCs.
Yeah, they're just kind of talking to each other
for forever until you like break it up or leave them alone. So
even her interaction with the random like drifter at the house that she walks by.
Dude, that's a perfect
same
point.
kind of thing.
Yeah,
like you just have this conversation, or like the conversation that the dude has when he gets the repair done in the town with the girl who does the repair desk. Like,
because he has to get his teeth pulled before he can go and pay for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's big parts of the game where I could see that true fans of Fallout would love it.
Yeah. I thought where it really dawned on me that they were kind of establishing so in the game, you would leave the vault and you'd have your vault suit on, right? And then what would happen is you'd kind of be running around and you run into your first pack of raiders, right? And all you got is your pistol, and like you'd kill the pack of raiders. And when you kill the pack of raiders, like you'd get like a piece of armor. And like the armor is important. Like even if you don't like the way it looks, like the vault suit doesn't protect you from anything.
Sure.
And the next time you run into a bunch of shit, you want some protection. So like you'd put on like this raider chest plate, and it would be like a shoulder pad and like a chest piece, but like nothing on the other arm.
Looking
like,
awful.
Yeah. And so over the course of the game, like you would like keep the vault pants on, but you'd like put on these pieces of armor. But then eventually like you'd take off the vault pants and put on like armored, bottoms or whatever. And like so you would like basically slowly transition from vault dweller to Wastelander, like over the course of the show. And there's this moment where the girl, it's when she breaks into that, it's when she gets traded by the Ghoul for 2 months worth of the drug. So she goes in there, and like the droid is getting ready, the helper guy is getting ready to saw her.
The helper who's trying to kill her.
He's trying to harvest her organs, right?
Yeah.
So she like survives that encounter, and she ends up killing the other dudes. I can't remember what she does with those two dudes, but she ends up like conquering that situation.
They died because she released a bunch of ghouls.
Yeah, that's right. She releases the ghouls. That's right. Yeah, which was crazy. So she releases the ghouls.
Yeah.
But when she gets out of that situation, like she comes out into the open again, like doesn't have her vault tech top on anymore. She has like the armor. She's got like the ammunition strapped to her chest. She's got her gun. Like she's just like fucking ready to go, And it's just cool because it just is like, it's part of that whole kind of transition through the game that I really appreciated. And like
they paid a lot of attention to small details.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like little things like in the game, if you needed power to power your power armor, you would break into a vault. And you'd go into their power source and you'd remove their fusion core.
Dude, that's so messed up.
And then you'd leave and like
and let them die slowly. That's so messed up.
Literally, it was such a like it's just. But that's kind of what it is. Like, and they kind of established that in the game where it's like everyone is the rules of society. Like, so for instance, like if Luke and I ran into each other in the middle of the wilderness. Like, yeah, we could do something, like I could kill Luke or he could kill me or something like that. But there's this overarching society involved. Like there was like that one murder case where like that chick got like strangled by her boyfriend out in the middle of Zion National Park or wherever that was.
Oh yeah. I
remember that whole thing?
Oh my gosh.
And it's like that dude thought like he was off the path and that he was in a position where he could conduct this behavior.
Murder.
But all it took was a dash cam from somebody who recognized the van. They found the body, and all of it goes south. But like even if you just go back 200 years, like all of a sudden you and I run into each other in the wilderness. It's like
who's going to witness this?
The only societal construct is something that you and I agree on, right? And so that's the thing is like in this Fallout universe, like everyone's kind of like, you run into each other and it's like, well, I could just kill. And I thought the perfect example of
towns, Philly spelled with an F.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I thought the perfect example of this dynamic was when they ran into the cannibals on the bridge.
Yes. No, I knew you were going there. And that was a super interesting meeting too, because Sweet Lucy's like, all right, like we're going to coach everyone through this and we're all going to agree. And she's super, like she's kind of just spunky, right? Yeah. And then she's just so sweet and likable. Like you described her as likable, and that's the perfect adjective for her. And they're doing the slow motion hands up as they walk across the bridge, and then the cannibals start to grin
to make their move. Yeah.
And then Maximus takes a tooth to the shoulder.
Yeah, dude, he gets a tooth to the shoulder, and
gross.
Like Maximus is a badass. Actually, it's funny.
Maximus was very likable
too. I had iffy thoughts on his character because there were some things about his character that I didn't like.
Oh, really?
But what I did like about him was like because he was just a little whiny. And
he was always like beat up, and it was kind of like a coming of age story for
Maximus too,
as well,
for sure. Yeah. But at the same time, like you could tell he was more equipped to survive the Wasteland than you were initially led to believe.
Right.
Like him on the fly, quickly grabbing that pistol and killing those two guys. But like, yeah, there's this hilarious moment after that whole incident goes down, and Lucy's like, "What the fuck, man? Like what is wrong with everybody in this place?" And because
she's like,
"What was that?" And he's like, "Those are they eat people."
And then he's got this. He didn't know what it was. Looking back at it, he has this tooth in his shoulder, and he's like, "Oh yeah, this is no big deal. This happens all the time." By the way, human bites are one of like the highest infectious rates that you can have, next to like cats and dogs. So like in real life, if a tooth was winged into your shoulder, that would be a massive deal.
Well, I believe it because I remember, isn't like one of the old wives' tales that like a human's mouth is way dirtier than a dog's,
like
or something
toilet.
Like that? Yeah, just some gross some gross shit that we used to hear when we were growing up.
Dude, there was a lot of funny parts too.
Oh, I thought the show was light but serious at the same time. I really, really enjoyed it.
When they were in the vault with all the weird experiment people, and the overseer has one eye, and he puts on his glasses. Dude, that got me. That was peak. I thought that was hilarious. I thought it would have been even more funny if he would have had to like tilt his head to one side to line up one of the
like he's the glass. He tried to get the eye like, aiming indirectly through the thing. That would like.
I thought that was super funny. Like I thought that was super funny. I'm trying to think of some of the other funny parts, but there was scattered across.
Like, yeah, it was definitely a big part of the scene in general. Just the overall kind of like light nature of it.
Can you explain that scene though? So because like I kind of got lost when they were originally doing experiments on people, but then they stopped, or they were like, why did Lucy all of a sudden have a change in heart, and like why she thought that they were no longer weird and why they were good?
It's tricky. So we're going to get into the big picture story here in just a second, but the big picture story obviously is these vaults that that the private sector basically empowered Vault Tech to basically do all these human experiments.
And on a whim, everyone's like, "Oh yeah, that sounds fun. All right, I'll invest."
Yeah, no, exactly. And what was interesting about it is like, so that particular Vault 4, the experiment was, what if we just had this vault where like everyone's a scientist? But like the thing is like scientists in general. I shouldn't say in general because I don't know enough scientists to make that kind of statement. But like, scientists have like an ambition to learn.
Sure.
Right. And sometimes that ambition to learn needs to be checked by non-scientists to basically be like, hey, like this is interesting, weird, but this has high risk. And also like, maybe this is something that is in a moral gray area, something like that. Right. And so the way that experiment went south is they started immediately like doing experiments on human DNA with radiation and stuff, and they ended up creating the monster.
Okay.
And that monster ended up basically conquering the vault and killing everything, right? But the way that I interpreted that is that they conducted those experiments and a bunch of them actually turned into like humans that were mutated. And the leaders of the vault got overthrown, but somehow the other mutants survived.
Okay.
And they basically took over the vault. But at the same time, like ran it like a normal vault with like an overseer and like the normal facilities. And
they were
stuff.
trying to do it like more ethically because they still had all those like pregnant ladies that were like frozen
on level 12. And I don't even think it was necessarily ethically. I think it was just like they had taken over at that point. But they were clearly also taking in surface dwellers too. Like I don't know if that was part of their experimentation or what the deal was. But that kind of takes us to the big picture thing. So like it's funny. I played Fallout 3. I played Fallout 4. I played Fallout New Vegas. I played one of the original 2 Fallouts. I might have played both of them, but the only one I for sure didn't play was 76. And I do remember there being a plot in the games about Vault Tech in particular being kind of like sketchy with the shit that they were doing in the vaults. Yeah. But the storyline of them actually kind of initiating the nuclear war was one that I had not heard in the games, and maybe I just missed it. So if you guys are Fallout guys and you can correct me if I'm wrong on that. And then secondly, many of the major plot devices in the games didn't center around Vault Tech, but centered through other factions in the Wasteland. The Brotherhood of Steel, the Enclave. Thank you for remembering, because every time I go to remember the Enclave, I fucking forget.
I just think of a giant E for some reason. I don't know why. That's
the New California Republic, the people who were running all of the casinos in Vegas, the Caesar's Legion, which I'm secretly hoping that we see in live action. I think that'd be so cool if like literally there was like some sort of exodus towards the east, and on their way across the country they ran into Caesar's Legion in Vegas. I think that would be so cool. There's just so many different like factions, and those factions generally are the ones that are kind of determining what is happening in the game, right? So like this was actually kind of in its way, at least for me, it kind of hit home as a new version of an old story. And so I'm hoping that if I'm wrong about that, some people can kind of explain themselves. But that whole dynamic about Cooper being kind of like a little bit of like a throwback, like anti-private sector type of dude who starts to kind of sniff these things out, and then when he overhears his wife Barb actually say in the board meeting like, well, like, because she basically pitches like, hey, what if we use all these vaults as like experiments? And like they kind of get on board and they're like, yeah, like what if I had my robot run I have a toaster that is, what if they run the vault, like all that, like what if we had a vault just ran by children? There's literally a vault. I can't remember which game it was, but I ran into a vault and there was just kids in the vault. Gosh. Like, so there's all these different interesting things, right? But one of the private sector dudes goes like,
the vaults turned into all those dudes' playthings.
Yeah,
it was literally crazy, and that's how they invested. They're like, "Yeah, that's fun." Okay, anyways, sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine, because that's an interesting topic that I want to get to in just a second. But like the counterpoint from one of the private sector dudes is like, well, what if this war doesn't happen? And then Barb is literally like, what if we just drop the nukes? And you could just see Cooper just like his whole situation sinks. And I'm really curious in season 2 for them to flush out what happened after that point, because clearly he gets separated from his wife in some regard, because he goes on to work alone with his daughter.
Exactly.
But somehow the daughter gets away from him after he rides away on the bike after the nukes drop.
Or they're on a horse.
Yeah, they're on a horse. That's right.
Yeah, and that nuke was very close. Yeah. Because like a couple of them went off, and one of them was just down in the valley, down from them.
For sure. And so theoretically, I mean, it's very possible that the girl is a ghoul now too, the daughter. But I'm really curious to see how they flush all that out. But that whole storyline was super, super interesting. But there's no doubt that, to your point that you were just brought up a minute ago, there's no doubt that like the major kind of like commentary behind the game is, or the show is a commentary I've seen in some other shows too, in some movies, where it's like there's this idea that the private sector is like only looking to advance the human race. And don't get me wrong, there are some examples of that being the case too, but that's flawed too. In the same way that the government being in charge of everything is flawed, the private sector being in charge of everything is also flawed, because you have bad people, and bad people do bad things regardless of whether or not they're in the government or they're just a rich guy.
Yep.
And like, I thought that was the main kind of point that they were trying to drive home, is basically like Vault Tech got too big and too powerful. Because can you imagine if there was a private company, like let's just take Elon Musk for instance, like he has shot thousands of satellites into our atmosphere, you know?
Yeah.
In the video game, Vault Tech has dug hundreds of vaults underneath the surface of the ground. Like, there is something to be said. It's like, it's kind of like one man having too much power, if that makes sense.
No, that's a perfect example. And like, not like bashing on Elon, right? But like, it would be really interesting if he truly was like a Bond villain, right?
Yeah,
Again,
exactly.
Elon, you're not a Bond villain. I know that. I'm not. Don't come after me, Elon.
He's got to set this.
I'm thinking about buying a Tesla. Don't come after me.
There's just there's literally a one of his satellites trained on you as we speak.
But your point being is just like, yeah, like when one person has too much power, it gets a little bit out of hand and potentially very scary.
Yeah, and I thought that was super interesting, and like that's like that sort of like meeting, sitting down with all these like super rich people. There's like they just have a lot of power when they pull their resources
and
together.
It's scary because planet Earth every single year feels smaller and smaller and smaller. Like with our advancements in technology, how quickly we can get around the world, how quickly viruses can get around the world. I mean, we lived through COVID, right? Like that was insane how quickly COVID spread across the world, and like the scale of everything is starting to like, you know, outweigh.
Get tight.
Yeah, it's starting to get tight. Yeah.
I thought that was a really interesting commentary in the show. And then like the second piece of it is just in general like what happens to the human race when structure is removed from the equation.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that like I struggled with as I watched the show, because like I'd turn it off and I'd just be like in deep thought about, you know, what it would be like to live in that era.
Well, the bridge scene. Just imagine nuclear apocalypse. You and Elena are alive still, and you're navigating to get to some place where there's a better situation for you. You come across a bridge, and there's two people on the other side of the bridge. What do? You do
Dude,
that.
I know.
You do exactly that.
I
like,
know. I'm too nice. I'd get my ass kicked every day.
Well, and that's kind of the interesting kind of idea, because like, you know, the Ghoul, Cooper, as he becomes the Ghoul, he kind of subtly at the beginning of the show and then more significantly at the end of the show kind of takes Lucy under his wing a little bit.
Yeah.
And like he's just like, give it time and you're going to be like me. Give it time, you're going to be like me. And like
Did the
Cooper
finger
is this
scene?
genuinely nice and kind person before the bomb.
Yeah.
And now he's this like wrecking ball of a human being / Ghoul that's like just like that like kind of has a nasty streak. You know what I mean? And like again, they don't paint the Ghoul as a bad guy in the scope of that universe.
Right.
Obviously, if a person behaved like that before the bomb, you'd be like, scumbag, piece of trash, lock him away forever.
True.
But like,
True.
all he really is a survivor.
Right.
And like, he's a man on a mission in pursuit of his family. And like within the context of the rules of the Fallout Wasteland, his character actually kind of makes sense as like what you would need to be to survive.
He's doing very good. Yeah, he's living more comfortably than most too.
Yeah, no, exactly.
His story is really interesting too, about how, you know, he's always like on his way towards ghouldom, and how he constantly needs the medication in order to not turn into a ghoul.
Yeah, and he made it longer than most of the other ghouls, clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's my take on that. I bet we get to see his story about how he turns into a ghoul. I wonder if he intentionally turned himself into a ghoul in order to be able to live long enough to try and find his family.
So
that's a hot take.
I can't remember how you become a ghoul from the games.
Is it just radiation? But then obviously there's that medicine that you can get.
Yeah, so
from the elixir guy.
I vaguely remember. It's just been so long since I played the games. Which, by the way, I intend to play the games again, just because like I'm just on a Fallout kick right now. But in the games, I vaguely remember something about a drug that turns you into a ghoul, but it's not that you take it and become a ghoul. It's like there's another character in the game that takes it and becomes a ghoul, something along those lines.
Oh, I see.
But I thought the gist of it was the radiation that caught, like the radiation,
that would make
some
sense.
sort of exposure turns you into a ghoul.
Sense.
And so like those are little details that I can't remember. But that said, like I think that they're going to dive. They bounced back and forth from past to future a lot over the course of the show.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to see the twist coming as it pertains to Lucy's dad?
Like whether so. I don't know. Maybe like 3 episodes left in the season. You start to wonder, hey, is this dude actually good? Like, why did they need him? The whole entire Moldaver thing. it took a long time for me to understand that she was actually good. Up until the last scene, I still didn't know if she was good or not. And good is so relative. Like Jason and I have talked about that a lot in our show, like especially for
like Palpatine is good.
For the yeah, I'm just kidding. Yeah, for these shows, like good and evil is very relative, right? But obviously he's an absolute scumbag because he destroyed an entire thriving city post-apocalypse just so him and his company could continue on with their game.
Because his wife at that point, Lucy's mom, had the information about Vault Tech.
Right. Yeah. That was insane. So the second Lucy found out about that, I knew that it was over for him, right? But the whole entire Moldaver thing, being a scientist herself and having the keys essentially to this limitless technology that she apparently was actually going to use for good, I presume.
Yeah, well, she did. She powered up the city with it.
Yeah, that was a really interesting spin. And with that power up of the city, not to get too into the weeds, I wonder if that then kind of turns into a beacon almost, and places like the Enclave like hear about it, and then I wonder if it just makes them an even bigger target, right?
The Enclave's going to make an appearance at some point.
I'm sure they will. And they kind of already did, technically.
Yeah.
That's how the scientists escaped.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of good and bad, we had figured that the scientist was probably a good guy, and he truly was. Like, he literally sacrificed himself in order to get the technology to Moldaver. I thought that was interesting.
You haven't even seen the laser weapons yet. That's a big thing with the Enclave. Is they
really?
they all have laser rifles. Yeah, that big.
That sounds incredible.
The big box-shaped barrel that you saw that when the dude was running away. Yeah, so do you remember the episode that ended with Lucy's little brother coming around the corner and there was like a big reveal, but you don't see it, and then it like cuts off?
Yeah, that was like right before the final episode.
Yeah, I think it was either the episode, it was either 6 or 7 that was the end. And I up to that point, they had me completely on my heels. I had no idea what to expect. And like I actually the reveal was both interesting, shocking, but also kind of funny.
I know.
The whole thing with like buds and like is like, no, the future is management. And like I remember when he was saying the future is management, I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? And then it's like, no, it's like all of these higher level Vault Tech managers were put in cryo freeze to run a vault, and like they're literally running the vault like it's like this like high level management type of kind of environment. And I was like, that's actually like really funny.
It is. No.
Even Bud's brain when he's talking is like as he's going over it all. That whole reveal as they broke it down, the Buds thing, like Barb turning out to be a bad guy.
Yeah,
like and
that's
then
what really was
the reveal of the Ghoul as Lucy's mom and Lucy's dad as one of the bad guys. All of that kind of came together into what I thought was a really cool twist at the end of the show.
100% agree with you. And again, like the small details, right? Lucy's mom had her necklace. And by the time that Lucy got to meet her mom, who had turned into a ghoul, like the necklace was like infused into the mom's neck. And like just like little details like that I thought were really, really cool. But
and how about Moldaver like putting the mom at the table and making him look at her?
I know.
Like, that was crazy.
But Moldaver obviously was, like, really good friends with Lucy's mom, right?
Yeah, because so I don't understand Moldaver's timeline at all.
No, and yeah, that's one of my big questions. So if anybody has a theory on this, please in the comments, like, put it down. So either Moldaver has figured out how to live longer than most. 200 years. Or she was in a cryo chamber for a while and then was released at some point. Moldaver, yeah, who knows what if she could have been in a cryo chamber. The other thing is she could be a ghoul. I don't know how, because she's a good-looking ghoul.
Yeah, exactly.
But, I mean, we know that ghouls can be ghouls and not really look like it. Like, for example,
the kid.
The guy that got shot in the neck with the arrow, whatever his name was.
Yeah. That actually was hilarious.
It was super funny. That part was really funny.
When he like pulls it out, he's
like, actually, I want to come back to that. Just a second. I want to come back to that because that whole entire scene, the on-air thing, is hilarious. But yeah, I mean, who knows? Moldaver could be a ghoul. I mean, I don't know, because she looks good for 200. I'll say that.
Yeah, her whole situation that because she's basically the same age before the bomb when she is running essentially like this anti-Vault Tech like support group / resistance movement.
They called them
right?
communists.
Yeah, they were. Right? Yeah, exactly. They were referring to them as communists, and then she also was friends with the mom when she was before she became a ghoul, which was back when Maximus was like a toddler.
And
basically.
Lucy was actually out of the vault at one point
Yeah,
too.
Lucy was out of the vault. Yeah, because that was interesting because she used to say she had this vivid memories when she was a kid where she could like feel the sun. Yeah, which was like really trippy.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Moldaver's timeline doesn't make any sense to me. They're gonna have to explain that part. But
Right.
I did find Moldaver's character super interesting, and I'm with you. I'm curious to see what happens with Shady Sands being like illuminated at this point.
Right. Right. Whether it's good or bad thing.
So the radio
what's that? Do you know the guy's name? Because I only know him from SNL. The guy that was running the radio station.
Gosh, I'm trying to remember what I can barely remember the character.
And I just thought it was funny because he had all these booby traps and then all these like
dead bodies.
And he was just so nonchalant.
Remember him on the air
it.
too. He's like, "Do not come and visit me. I do not take visitors."
And that's what I'm like. That's what it's just so good. And then the fact that that one guy got shot into the neck with an arrow and he's just standing there and he's like, "Why am I not dead?" He's losing it, and everyone's like, "Yeah, you should be dead." And he pulls it out.
Yeah, Maximus is like, "Dude, you're a ghoul."
He's like, no. It's not even that. He's like, I think you're a ghoul.
And then the kid's like, "Damn it! I knew I shouldn't have trusted that guy. He smelled funny."
Dude, the elixir guy. Here's the other funny part that we forgot to bring up. So the scientist has his leg just completely blown off, right? And then he gets the new leg. And the way that they married that metal leg to his was insane.
Just cramming it onto his stump.
And it was like all these like moving teeth that were in there. It was crazy, right? So
yeah, Fallout technology I don't think is based on real technology.
Yikes. Well, yeah, I mean, Lucy gets her finger sewn on from this like drawer of
a dead
old
body. Just a
this
dead
drawer
finger.
of old fingers that had probably been there for months. Anyways, the whole entire elixir guy, he's like, "I have elixirs, one that will, he's like, treat pain, one that can grow entire human feet." Just like all stuff like that, and he's trying to sell it, and the scientist is just ignoring him, and they're walking through Philly.
No, but
It's
that's
funny.
the game. In the game, you would like in the same way that if you use the VAT system, you'd see like a sectioned version of the body that you were aiming at. Mm-hmm. When you would open up your Pip-Boy, it would show you your whole body, and like you'd have your head, your torso, your arms, your legs, and like you would have your overall health. But each limb had its own health bar.
I see.
And so, like, let's say, for instance, like you ran into a Deathclaw, which we saw a Deathclaw's skull at one point when they were walking around, but we didn't actually see a Deathclaw. So I think we'll see it in season 2.
What is a Deathclaw? Is that what the large like horned animal was?
It's one of those things that you just have to see it.
No, I'm sure. No,
but
if you played Fallout, you know.
So, but if you got swiped by the Deathclaw on the arm, like, yeah, your overall health would take a hit, but also like your left arm would become crippled.
Oh.
And like if you had a crippled leg, you'd start limping everywhere. If you had a crippled arm, it would change like your aiming accuracy, and then like you wouldn't be able to carry as much weight and stuff like that. So like what you'd have to literally go to a doctor in the Wasteland to get your limb fixed.
I see.
Because you couldn't just heal yourself. You had to get your limb fixed at the doctor.
Was it a good doctor?
Now, if I remember correctly, you could like shoot a bunch of stim packs into the fucked up arm, and like it would like.
Stim packs are incredible.
Yeah, stim packs are just get the job done, man.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like
Lucy got stabbed with a knife, and then she just stim packed
stabbed herself again, and then she was good.
Yeah. Like her colon was just severed and stim packed it, and then just did 2 staples on a massive wound and just called it good.
Oh my gosh, it was hilarious. It was amazing. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Our season finale, basically. One of the things that is frustrating is the guy is in his suit with his helmet off, and they're in easy position to kill him.
I know.
But then it makes sense. So the Ghoul basically lets him leave so that he can track him to the Fallout facilities because he's trying to get his wife and his daughter.
The base that they showed at the end, there was like I could tell that it was a big reveal as far as what the base looked like. Was that some iconic base that most people know about? Do you know?
So I don't.
Okay.
But I have a theory. It looked like he started walking east. Mm. So I think season 2 is probably going to be based in Vegas.
Oh.
And and there is a Nellis Air Force Base that's in Vegas where there's a bunch of shit going on. It's possible that Vault Tech has some sort of massive facility that's kind of hidden out there somewhere.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that season 2 we get the major factions are the New California Republic, the actual city of Vegas, and Caesar's Legion. I think that would be really fun. Just having like a bunch of like rundown, like crappy looking like Wastelanders wearing Roman armor, I think would be hilarious. But yeah, I think that's what they're headed towards. because it just looked like it was a desert trek that he was
Yeah.
on.
Right.
And you know how it is in California, like when you're on one side of the mountains, it's like green,
Dude, isn't
and
that true?
beautiful, and then you get on the other side of the mountains and it's like desolate.
Right.
And it was very desolate where Lucy's dad went
For
off
sure.
to.
Part of me wondered is Barb and Lucy, I'm sorry, Barb and the Ghoul's daughter, like could they be in one of the vaults that we know, right? 31. But then I was like, that's kind of boring from like a storyline standpoint. That'd be like very boring if Barb was just in that vault.
Well, yeah, and you mean in the cryo chambers?
Yeah, in the cryo chambers.
It's possible. Yeah, I think they're going to end up having them in
somewhere
this
else.
larger facility.
Yeah, it's too boring.
Yeah, and then also like you wonder. I couldn't tell if Lucy's dad was a lower level executive or a higher level executive. That was hard for me to tell. But like Barb was leading that meeting, so presumably she's like a higher level executive, and so she would just be like in like a more high pressure responsibility position.
Right.
Any other thoughts?
No, man, I enjoyed it. It was tough for me to watch at times, but overall very good.
Yeah, and I am gonna play the Fallout games again. I have my PS5 sitting around. I need to make some use for it, and I just really, really enjoyed the story for Fallout 4 and Fallout New Vegas. I think I'm going to play those again.
Yeah.
But yeah, so here's the deal. Luke is probably going to come back over tomorrow to do Shogun season finale. I've seen Shogun episode 9, but Luke has not yet. So he actually needs to get like all the way caught up. We didn't get to hit episode 9 because Luke was out of town, but we are going to hit both episode 9 and the season finale. We'll just do it in one big swing in the show tomorrow. We also have already recorded a kind of like a preview of Tales of the Empire. I just have been really busy with the playoffs, so I haven't had a chance to post it yet. So I'll post that in a couple days as well. And then, dude, we're literally like right around the corner from a bunch more good content.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I appreciate you taking the time to get to Fallout. You've binge watched it.
I did.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Elena was busy with all the wedding stuff. So
I
was just tucked away in our hotel room just watching Fallout.
What's your take on mass releases versus week by week?
Oh, I'm a huge fan of week by week.
I think I am too.
Yeah.
Obviously, it makes it more culturally drawn out.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, because you all get to enjoy the episodes together, right? I'm sure financially there's a reason to release them all at once.
Why would that be, though?
Dude, I don't know. Maybe because people don't feel like they've missed the boat. So, for example, I was talking to someone about Fallout. They're asking about it. And they're like, oh, like, I haven't watched it. And I was like, oh, yeah, you should check it out. It's, it's really good. The plot's incredible. And they're like, okay, like, we'll check it out. But they're on their own little pace. So they haven't really missed out anything because there's really nothing to miss out on. You can watch it whenever you want. Whereas, like, if it's week by week, if everyone's already had, like, the buzz and the chatter about it, then they've kind of missed out. But from, like, a podcast standpoint, obviously I love it when it's week by week because then you and I get to break it down and have predictions. And that's really fun. Like, that's fun to talk about with you. So I wish that they would do it, week by week versus all at once.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of week by week, too, because of the kind of, like, tiered progress of it all. Like, I've been through it. Like, I've been through mass release shows and, like, honestly, that's like I felt like going episode 1 and being able to be like at the same time you and I Shogun, for instance, like
Shogun, yeah.
Tonight is Shogun season finale.
Right.
I'm super excited for it. Every Monday, Carly and I have watched the episode together.
Yeah.
Every time it's
something
been
to
great.
look forward to.
There's suspense and like culturally, it's like we all take in episode 1 together. We all take in episode 2 together. We all take in episode 3 together. So like while I appreciate the binging, and there's no doubt that I enjoyed binging through Fallout in the last couple of weeks, I'm a big believer in the week by week as well.
For sure. Me too. 100%.
All right, guys, that is all we have for today. As always, we sincerely appreciate you guys for supporting the show. If you've made it this far, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. That would be really helpful for us as well. We only have about 100 and some change before we get to 1,000. The magical 1,000 kind of
arbitrary
benchmark.
1,000.
Yes, exactly.
Which is a good one. It's a good one.
Round numbers. So if you guys could subscribe, we'd really appreciate it. Like I said, we'll be back tomorrow with the Shogun season finale as well as episode 9, although we'll probably just focus on the finale for the most part, and then we'll have plenty of content over the rest of the summer. We appreciate you guys. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks a lot.